$352 short, Lena Morgan whispered to herself, staring at her laptop screen in the cramped Boston apartment she shared with two roommates. The light from her screen illuminated her exhausted face, dark circles prominent under her eyes. Her student loan payment was due tomorrow, tuition installment the following week, and her bank account balance glared back at her like an accusation. She minimized the banking app and pulled up Instagram, her thumb hovering hesitantly before tapping on her father's profile. The algorithm had helpfully suggested it as if to twist the knife. There they were, Robert Morgan, his wife Diane, and their two teenage children, Braden and Mackenzie, posing on a yacht somewhere off the coast of Greece. Her father's caption read, "Making memories with the people who matter most. #blessed, #family vacation, #no regrets." Lena's finger trembled as she zoomed in on their smiling faces, the crystal-clear Mediterranean waters behind them. This was their third vacation this year. Meanwhile, she hadn't taken a day off work in 8 months. Her phone vibrated with a text from her manager at the coffee shop. "Can you cover Sarah's shift tomorrow morning? 5 a.m. to 1 p.m. Lena closed her eyes, calculating the hours between that shift and her evening job at the restaurant. 3 hours. She'd have 3 hours to attend her afternoon class, then straight to the restaurant until midnight. Of course, she typed back, knowing the extra hours would cover the shortfall in her loan payment. As she set her alarm for 4 a.m., her phone lit up with another notification. A Facebook memory from 7 years ago, her high school graduation. In the photo, her father stood beside her, arm around her shoulders, beaming with pride. "My brilliant daughter off to Boston University. So proud of this one." What the caption didn't mention was the conversation they'd had just hours after the photo was taken. "I'm sorry, Lena," her father had said, sitting her down in his home office. "With the new house, the twins' private school tuition, and helping Diane start her business, I just can't contribute to your college expenses the way we discussed. You're smart, you've got scholarships, and you've always been so independent. I know you'll figure it out. But Dad, we've been planning this for years. Mom's life insurance was supposed to... I've had to make some difficult decisions since your mother passed," he'd interrupted. "Diane and the kids need stability. You're an adult now." The memory burned fresh as she stared at the yacht photo again. Her stepmother's business, an upscale boutique that had failed within 18 months, had been funded by her mother's life insurance money. The money that was supposed to pay for her education. Lena's phone rang, breaking her from the painful memory. It was her academic advisor. "Lena, I'm concerned about your proposal for the entrepreneurship competition," Dr. Winters said without preamble. "Your concept is excellent, but you've missed 2 planning sessions. The deadline is in 3 weeks. "I know, I'm sorry," Lena said. "My work schedule has been." "The first prize is $50,000 in seed funding, plus mentorship from some of the top venture capitalists in the country," Dr. Winters continued. "With your insight into financial technology, you could actually win this, but not if you don't prioritize it." "Prioritize it?" As if it were that simple. "I'll make the next session," Lena promised. After ending the call, she opened her desk drawer and pulled out a worn leather journal, her mother's. Inside were her mother's thoughts, dreams, and financial advice she'd written down before cancer took her when Lena was 15. She flipped to a dog-eared page with a quote highlighted. "Sometimes the people who should support you won't. That doesn't mean you can't succeed, it means you'll succeed despite them." Lena traced her finger over her mother's handwriting, then turned to a fresh page in her own notebook. At the top, she wrote, "Finlift, micro-investment platform for working students." Her concept was simple but revolutionary. A platform that would allow working students to automatically invest micro amounts from their paychecks, with educational components about building wealth while managing student debt. She'd been developing the idea for over a year, drawing on her double major in finance and computer science, along with her first-hand experience of financial struggle. As she worked into the night, refining her business plan, her father's Instagram post remained open on her phone beside her. Each time her determination wavered, she glanced at it, letting the anger and hurt fuel her focus. She wasn't just working for a grade or a competition prize anymore. She was working toward the day when she could show her father exactly what she'd accomplished without him. At 2 a.m., she finally fell asleep at her desk, her hand still clutching her pen. Her last conscious thought was calculating how many shifts it would take to make up the financial shortfall without missing any more competition planning sessions. She had no way of knowing that in 3 years' time, she would be worth more than her father had ever been. "Order up for table 7. Chef Miguel called out from the kitchen of Pescatori, the upscale Italian restaurant where Lena worked nights and weekends. Lena quickly arranged the plates on her tray, expertly balancing it on her shoulder as she navigated through the busy Friday night crowd. Her feet ached from being on them for nearly 12 hours straight, first the morning shift at the coffee shop, then a quick dash to campus for her venture capital class, and now here until midnight. "Here we are," she said with a practiced smile, setting down the plates at table 7. Squid ink linguine with clams and the pan-seared scallops with saffron risotto. "Can I get you anything else?" The man dining alone looked up from his phone, and Lena immediately recognized him as Victor Chen, a regular customer who always requested her section. In his late 50s, he typically wore casual but expensive clothes, read financial newsletters while dining, and always tipped 30%. "Everything looks perfect, thank you," he said. Then, nodding toward her Boston University lanyard partially hidden in her apron pocket, "How are your classes going? Finance and computer science, right? You mentioned that last time." Lena was surprised he remembered. "They're challenging but good. I'm actually working on a project for the entrepreneurship competition right now." "Oh." He put down his fork, suddenly interested. "What's your concept?" Something about his genuine interest made Lena forget her exhaustion. She briefly outlined her FinLift platform, explaining the problem she was trying to solve for working students like herself. "That's actually quite innovative," Victor said, looking thoughtful. "Have you considered how you'll handle the regulatory requirements for a financial platform? The SEC has specific guidelines for micro-investment applications." Lena's eyes widened. This wasn't casual conversation, these were the exact technical questions she'd been struggling with for weeks. "I'm still researching that aspect," she admitted. "The competition mentors haven't been very helpful with the financial regulations component." Victor smiled and reached into his wallet, pulling out a business card. "I might be able to help with that. I'm a partner at Meridian Venture Capital. We specialize in fintech startups." Lena took the card with slightly trembling hands. Meridian VC was one of the top venture capital firms in Boston. She'd studied their investment portfolio in her VC class. "I'm not looking for investment yet," she said cautiously. "The platform is still just a concept." "I'm not offering investment," Victor clarified. "At least not yet. But I do serve as a mentor for promising entrepreneurs, particularly those from unconventional backgrounds. Your approach to solving a problem you've experienced firsthand, that's exactly the kind of founder we look for." Before Lena could respond, her phone buzzed. A text from her father. "Hey kiddo, just checking in. Haven't heard from you in a while. We're heading to Aspen next week for Braden's spring break. Any chance you can FaceTime before we leave? Diane and the kids send their love." No mention of her midterms. No offer to help. Just another vacation announcement disguised as a check-in. Lena put her phone away without responding and turned back to Victor. "I would appreciate any guidance you could offer, Mr. Chen." "Victor, please," he said. "And I'm serious about helping. I was in your shoes once working through school, trying to launch a business with more determination than resources. Sometimes talent needs opportunity to flourish." He glanced at his watch. "I have to run to another meeting, but I'd like to hear more about your platform. Are you available for coffee next Tuesday? My office is downtown." After Victor left, Lena held his business card as if it might disappear. For the first time in months, she felt something unfamiliar, hope. Not just for winning the competition, but for turning her concept into something real. That night, she finally responded to her father's text. "Too busy with work and school for FaceTime. Have fun in Aspen." She didn't mention the competition, her concept, or meeting Victor. Her father had never shown interest in her academic projects before, always changing the subject to Braden's hockey tournaments or Mackenzie's dance recitals. The following Tuesday, dressed in the one business casual outfit she owned, Lena sat across from Victor Chen in the sleek conference room of Meridian VC. She'd spent the weekend polishing her presentation, anticipating tough questions. "Before we discuss your platform," Victor said, "I'd like to understand your motivation. Why this particular solution?" Lena hesitated, then decided on honesty. "When my mother died, she left money for my education. My father reallocated it to his new family. I've been working multiple jobs to afford school, and I've seen how financial stress affects academic performance. But I've also learned that even small amounts invested consistently can grow significantly." She pulled out her mother's journal. "My mom taught me about financial independence before she passed. I've been tracking every penny I earn and invest since I was 16. I've turned $2,700 into almost $10,000 through careful investments, despite barely making ends meet. Imagine what working students could do with the right tools and knowledge. Victor studied her for a long moment. You know what sets apart successful entrepreneurs from the rest? It's not just good ideas or technical skills, it's resilience and personal connection to their mission. You have both. Over the next 2 hours, they dissected her business model, with Victor pointing out regulatory challenges she hadn't considered and offering solutions drawn from his 20 years in fintech. Your platform needs a more robust educational component, he suggested. Financial literacy is as important as the investment tool itself. And you should consider how to monetize without exploiting your user base. As their meeting concluded, Victor made an unexpected offer. The competition is a good start, but regardless of whether you win, I'd like you to join our summer incubator program. It includes a $20,000 stipend and mentorship from our entire team. Lena stared at him in disbelief. Why would you do this for me? Victor smiled. Because 15 years ago, I was a cancer researcher who pivoted to fintech to create platforms that would help patients afford treatment after watching my father struggle. Someone took a chance on me then. Now I'm taking a chance on you. As Lena left Meridian's offices, her phone buzzed with a new Instagram notification. Her father had posted photos from Aspen, pristine ski slopes, her stepbrother and stepsister in expensive new ski gear, everyone smiling in a luxury chalet. For the first time, she didn't feel the familiar surge of resentment. Instead, she took a screenshot and saved it to a folder she just created on her phone, Motivation. She then called her roommate. Emily? I'm going to need the apartment to myself this weekend. I'm finalizing my competition presentation and I think I might actually have a shot at this. 3 weeks later, Lena stood in the university auditorium's wings, watching as the winners of the entrepreneurship competition were announced. She'd made it to the final round, one of 5 finalists selected from over 200 entries. Her presentation had been flawless, earning nods of approval from the judges. And the first-place winner, receiving $50,000 in seed funding and mentorship from our panel of venture capitalists, is FinLift by Lena Morgan. The audience erupted in applause as Lena walked onto the stage, accepting the oversized check with hands she commanded not to tremble. Under the bright lights, she delivered her acceptance speech, thanking her professors, Victor Chen for his guidance, and finally, her voice catching slightly, her late mother for teaching her the value of financial independence. She didn't thank her father. He wasn't there anyway. After the ceremony, amidst congratulations from classmates and professors, Lena's phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. Congratulations on your win. Your mother would be proud. Call me when you have time. We need to talk. Dad. Lena stared at the message in confusion. She hadn't told her father about the competition. How did he know? The answer came moments later when Dr. Winters approached with an older couple. Lena, these people were asking about you. They say they're family. Lena's breath caught in her throat as she found herself face to face with her father and stepmother for the first time in nearly 2 years. Surprise! Robert Morgan said with an awkward smile, moving in for a hug that Lena stiffly accepted. We were in town visiting Braden. He's checking out Northeastern, and your professor mentioned this competition when I called the department trying to reach you. Diane, immaculately dressed as always, offered a cold smile. Congratulations, Lena. Your father has been telling everyone about his daughter, the entrepreneur. Has he? Lena thought bitterly. The same father who couldn't be bothered to help with her tuition but found money for ski trips and yachts? Thanks for coming, she said neutrally. It was unexpected. We're so proud, her father continued, seemingly oblivious to her coolness. $50,000, that's impressive. And perfect timing too, actually. I wanted to talk to you about that. About what? Lena asked, already knowing where this was heading. Well, Robert lowered his voice, we're in a bit of a tight spot. Braden got into Northeastern early decision, but the financial aid package isn't what we expected. And with Mackenzie starting at Princeton next year. You want my prize money? Lena stated flatly, not bothering to phrase it as a question. Her father had the decency to look slightly embarrassed. Not all of it, of course. Just a loan. $20,000 or so. Family helps family, right? And it's not like you need it immediately for your app thing. You're still in the planning phases. From across the room, Lena caught Victor Chen's eye. He'd come to support her and was now watching the interaction with concern. That money is for developing FinLift, Lena said firmly. It's not a personal windfall, it's seed funding for a business. I have investors and mentors counting on me to use it appropriately. Investors? Robert scoffed. Lena, be realistic. Student apps don't become real businesses. This is a school project that got some attention. Don't throw away a chance to help your brother. Half-brother, Lena corrected quietly. And where was this family helps family philosophy when I needed help with tuition? When I was working 60-hour weeks while taking full course loads. When I couldn't afford textbooks and had to study from library copies. Her father's expression hardened. That was different. You were always independent, always had scholarships. Brayden has different needs. Different needs or different value to you? The words escaped before Lena could stop them, years of hurt bubbling to the surface. Diane stepped forward, her voice sharp. How dare you speak to your father that way? After everything he's done for you. What exactly has he done for me, Diane? Lena asked, her voice steady despite the anger coursing through her. Used my mother's life insurance money specifically designated for my education, to fund your failed boutique? Forgotten my birthday for 3 years running? Or perhaps you mean the emotional support of posting family vacation photos while I was working overnight shifts to pay my rent. Her father's face reddened. That's enough. I didn't come here to be attacked. I came to celebrate your achievement and discuss a family matter. My achievement wasn't important enough for you to know about until you needed something from me, Lena said. And that tells me everything I need to know about my place in your family. She turned to walk away, then paused. By the way, FinLift isn't just a school project. I've been accepted into Meridian VC's summer incubator program. That's one of the top venture capital firms in the country. My app thing already has a higher valuation than that boutique you funded with my college money. As she walked toward Victor, who was now approaching with concern, she heard her father call after her. Lena, don't be dramatic. We can discuss this later when you've calmed down. But there would be no later discussion. That night, Lena blocked her father's number and removed herself from all family group chats. She untagged herself from old family photos on social media and unfollowed her father and stepmother's accounts. In her apartment, she opened her mother's journal again, finding strength in the familiar handwriting. Your worth isn't determined by how others value you, but by how you value yourself. Stand firm in your boundaries. Those who truly love you will respect them. She then opened her laptop and pulled up her business plan for FinLift, making a new notation at the bottom, expansion goal. Reach $1 million valuation within 3 years. It was ambitious, perhaps unrealistic, but now she had more than just financial independence driving her. She had something to prove to herself and to the father who had undervalued her for years. That night, she created a new digital folder labeled Promise. Inside, she saved the photo of her father and stepmother at the competition, their faces captured in the moment they realized they couldn't manipulate her anymore. Beside it, she saved the image of her holding the winner's check. 2 paths diverging, one she was leaving behind and one she was racing toward. We need to talk about your work schedule, Victor said as he entered the small office Lena had been assigned in the Meridian VC incubator space. It was mid-July, 6 weeks into the summer program, and Lena had been pulling 14-hour days, sleeping on the office couch more often than in her apartment. Lena looked up from her computer where she was coding a prototype of FinLift's user interface. Is there a problem with my progress? I'm ahead of the development timeline. That's exactly the problem, Victor said, placing a coffee on her desk. You're working too hard, too fast. I've been watching you, Lena. You arrive before everyone else, leave after everyone else, and based on the timestamp of your commits, you're coding until 3 a.m. most nights. I want to make the most of this opportunity, she said defensively. The incubator program ends in 6 weeks. This isn't just about the program, Victor replied, sitting across from her. This is about building a sustainable company. And sustainable companies need healthy founders. Lena sighed, running a hand through her unwashed hair. She knew she looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, living in the same 3 outfits she rotated through, surviving on coffee and protein bars. I quit my restaurant job to focus on this, she admitted. But I'm still working mornings at the coffee shop. Between that, classes starting again in September and FinLift, I don't have much choice but to maximize every hour. Victor was quiet for a moment, then asked, why didn't you tell me you were still working another job? The stipend was meant to replace your income so you could focus on FinLift. The stipend covers rent and basic expenses, Lena explained. But I still have student loan payments and I'm trying to build an emergency fund. After watching my father prioritize his new family's luxury lifestyle over my education, I promised myself I'd never be financially vulnerable again. Victor nodded thoughtfully. I understand your drive, but this pace isn't sustainable. Burnout is a real risk, especially for solo founders. I don't have the luxury of slowing down, Lena said quietly. Actually, you might, Victor countered. The partners had a meeting this morning. We've been impressed with your progress, much more than impressed. We'd like to make an early investment in Finlift. $200,000 for a 15% stake, plus continued mentorship through our regular funding pipeline. Lena's exhaustion evaporated instantly. $200,000? That would value Finlift at over $1 million. But it's still just a prototype. We're investing in you as much as the platform, Victor explained. Your technical skills are exceptional, but what really sold us was watching you conduct user interviews with working students, iterating on their feedback, and building something that genuinely solves their problems. You understand your market because you are your market. He slid a term sheet across the desk. Take the weekend to review this with a lawyer. And if you accept, your first executive decision should be to hire a part-time developer to handle some of the workload. You need to focus on strategy and building relationships with the financial institutions you'll need as partners. That evening, for the first time in months, Lena left work early. She walked through Boston's Public Garden, the term sheet safely tucked in her bag, trying to process what had happened. Her phone buzzed with a text from her roommate Emily. Emergency. Your dad showed up at our apartment looking for you. I told him you moved, but he's being super pushy about getting your new address. Lena's heart raced. She hadn't spoken to her father since the competition 3 months ago. Why was he suddenly trying to find her? She called Emily immediately. Did he say what he wanted? He said it was a family emergency but wouldn't elaborate, Emily replied. He seemed desperate. I got a weird vibe. After reassuring Emily she'd handle it, Lena reluctantly unblocked her father's number and called him. Lena. He answered immediately. Thank God. I've been trying to reach you for weeks. What's the emergency? She asked coldly. We need to talk in person, he hedged. Can we meet somewhere? Not until you tell me what this is about. His voice lowered. It's financial. We're in trouble, Lena. The market took a downturn and some investments didn't pan out. We might lose the house. Braden had to defer Northeastern because we couldn't make the deposit, and Mackenzie's Princeton dreams are hanging by a thread. I know things have been strained between us, but I'm desperately trying to keep this family from falling apart. Lena closed her eyes, recognizing the manipulation tactic. And you think I can help? How exactly? Your app, Finlift, right? I did some research. You're working with Meridian VC now. They're a major firm. Surely you have connections, maybe access to emergency loans or investment opportunities that could help us restructure our debt. The audacity was breathtaking. He hadn't bothered to learn about her venture when she was developing it, had dismissed it as a school project, and now he wanted to leverage her professional relationships for a bailout. Finlift is developing a platform for working students struggling to build financial stability while pursuing education, she said evenly. It's not designed to rescue people who mismanage wealth. Lena, please, her father's voice cracked. I'm your father. I know I haven't been perfect, but family is family. You're right, you haven't been perfect, Lena agreed. In fact, you've been consistently clear about your priorities. Now I'm being clear about mine. I'm not in a position to help you, nor do I wish to. Please don't contact me or my roommates again. She ended the call before he could respond, her hand shaking slightly. Then she called Victor. I'd like to accept the investment offer, she said without preamble when he answered. And I have another idea I'd like to discuss, an expansion of Finlift's educational component focusing on generational wealth and family financial planning. 6 months later, Lena stood in front of a room full of investors at Meridian's demo day, presenting the fully developed Finlift platform. No longer the exhausted student waiting tables, she spoke with confidence in a crisp blazer, her presentation polished and compelling. Financial literacy shouldn't be a privilege, she told the audience. And building wealth shouldn't be reserved for those who already have it. Finlift has now helped over 5,000 working students collectively invest more than $750,000 through microdeposits tied to their work income, with an educational framework that grows with their financial journey. The platform had expanded beyond her initial vision, now including specialized tools for first-generation college students, resources for navigating family financial dynamics, and partnerships with 3 major universities for financial literacy programs. When the presentation concluded, investors swarmed her with business cards and questions. Lena's phone buzzed in her pocket, a news alert she had set up months ago. She glanced at it quickly. Morgan Family Holdings files for bankruptcy protection. Estate in Westchester County listed for sale. She put her phone away and turned her attention back to the investors. Her father's financial troubles weren't her concern anymore. She had a company to build. That night, as valuation discussions with new investors suggested Finlift might soon be worth close to $8 million, Lena opened her mother's journal and traced the familiar handwriting. Success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. For the first time, she felt she was doing both. 1 year later, Lena sat in Finlift's new Boston office, staring at the email that had just appeared in her inbox. The subject line read, "Congratulations from a proud father." At 23, Lena was now the CEO of a FinX startup valued at $12 million after a successful series of funding round. Finlift had grown to 15 employees, had partnerships with 27 universities, and was featured in Forbes' 30 Under 30 list. The office walls displayed framed articles about the company's mission to democratize wealth building for working students. She hadn't heard from her father in 18 months. Not since she'd refused to bail out his finances. Not when Finlift launched officially. Not when she made the Forbes list. Yet now, after her recent profile in the Boston Globe detailing the company's success and her personal journey, he had suddenly resurfaced. With trepidation, she opened the email. "Lena, words cannot express how proud I am to see what you've accomplished. You've proven yourself to be extraordinary, just as your mother always believed you would be. I've been following your success from afar, not wanting to intrude on the life you've built for yourself. I understand why you've kept your distance. My choices after your mother's passing were selfish and short-sighted. I prioritized my new family over my responsibilities to you, and I've lived with that regret every day since our confrontation at your competition. You may have heard that things have been difficult for us. The bankruptcy, losing the house, the divorce from Diane. It's been a humbling experience. Braden and Mackenzie are at community colleges now, working part-time jobs, something I never prepared them for. They're struggling with the adjustment, but perhaps it will build the character and resilience you've demonstrated. I'm writing not to ask for anything, but simply to acknowledge my failings as a father and to tell you that your mother would be overwhelmed with pride at the woman you've become. You've honored her memory in ways I never did. I'll be in Boston next week for a job interview. Nothing prestigious, just an accounting position at a mid-sized firm, trying to rebuild my career. If you'd be willing to meet for coffee, even briefly, I would be grateful for the opportunity to apologize in person. With love and admiration, Dad." Lena read the email 3 times, her emotions cycling between skepticism, anger, and a tiny flicker of the longing for parental approval she'd never quite extinguished. She forwarded the email to her therapist, the one she'd started seeing 6 months ago when panic attacks began interrupting her sleep, legacy trauma surfacing as her company's success grew. Then she closed her laptop and walked to the large windows overlooking Boston Harbor. A knock on her office door interrupted her thoughts. It was Zoe, Finlift's chief product officer and Lena's first hire. "The university partnership contracts are ready for your review," Zoe said, then paused, noticing Lena's expression. "Everything okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." "My father emailed me," Lena admitted. "He wants to meet next week." Zoe knew the story, most of Lena's inner circle did. Her abandonment had become part of the Finlift origin story, though carefully sanitized for public consumption. "Are you going to see him?" Zoe asked. "I don't know," Lena answered honestly. "Part of me wants to show him exactly what I've built, to see the recognition in his eyes that he backed the wrong horse. Another part never wants to see him again." "What would you tell a user who came to you with this situation?" Zoe asked gently. It was their standard framework for difficult decisions, applying Finlift's own advice methodology to personal challenges. Lena sighed. "I'd tell them to identify their desired outcome and work backward from there. But I'm not sure what I want from this interaction. Validation? Revenge? Closure? Or maybe just to confirm that I truly don't need his approval anymore." Over the next few days, Lena consulted her therapist, her closest friends, and even Victor Chen, who had become a trusted mentor and board member. Opinions varied, some urged caution and emotional self-protection, others suggested that confronting her father might provide closure. Ultimately, she decided to meet him. Not at a coffee shop as he'd suggested, but at Finlift's offices. When Robert Morgan arrived the following Wednesday, he looked nothing like the confident, affluent man Lena remembered. His designer clothes had been replaced with an off-the-rack suit that hung slightly loose on his frame. His hair had grayed significantly and deep lines etched his face. Lena greeted him in the reception area, maintaining a professional distance. "Thank you for coming, Robert." She deliberately used his first name, a small but significant boundary. If he noticed, he didn't comment. Instead, his eyes moved around the sleek office space, taking in the Finlift logo, the bustling employees, the wall of press mentions. "This is impressive," he said, his voice tinged with genuine awe. "More than impressive. It's extraordinary." "Thank you. Let's talk in my office." She led him through the main workspace where curious employees pretended not to stare. Everyone knew the significance of this visit. Once inside her corner office with its harbor view, Lena gestured to a chair across from her desk. "Would you like coffee?" "Water." "Water would be fine," he said, sitting down carefully as if afraid to take up too much space. After her assistant brought water, Lena closed the door and sat behind her desk. "Your email mentioned you wanted to apologize in person." Robert nodded, setting down his water without drinking. "Yes. Though sitting here now, seeing all you've accomplished, apology seems woefully inadequate." "Try anyway," Lena said, her voice neutral. "I failed you," he began simply. "After your mother died, I was lost. I convinced myself that creating a new family, a new life, was the only way forward. In doing so, I betrayed not only you but also your mother's memory and wishes." He paused, his hands fidgeting slightly. "When Diane came into my life, she had very specific ideas about family and finances. I was weak. I allowed her vision to override my responsibilities to you. I told myself you were strong, independent, that you'd be fine without my support. The truth is, I was selfish and afraid." Lena remained silent, watching him struggle to articulate his failings. "Seeing you at that competition, watching you stand your ground when I tried to access your prize money, it forced me to see myself clearly for the first time in years. The bankruptcy and divorce that followed were painful, but necessary consequences of the choices I'd made." "And Braden and Mackenzie?" Lena asked. "How are they handling the adjustment?" A flash of pain crossed his face. "Poorly, to be honest. They were raised with certain expectations. When everything collapsed, Diane took a job in Chicago. The kids blame me for the divorce, the financial troubles, for their reduced circumstances. We barely speak." "That must be difficult," Lena said, surprised to find she meant it. "It is," he acknowledged. "But it's shown me exactly what I did to you, and that's the hardest part to live with. Having my own children reject me has made me understand what you must have felt all those years." There was a long silence as Lena processed his words. Part of her, the wounded teenager who had cried herself to sleep after seeing vacation photos, wanted to say, "Good. Now you know how it feels." But the entrepreneur who had built a company on principles of financial empowerment and emotional intelligence recognized the futility of such vindictiveness. "Why are you really here, Robert?" she finally asked. "Apologies are meaningful only when they come without expectations." He looked down at his hands. "I guess I wanted to see if there was any possibility of rebuilding some kind of relationship. Not as father and daughter necessarily, but perhaps as, I don't know, something more than strangers." "And there's nothing else?" Lena pressed, watching him closely. "No financial component to this reconciliation attempt?" Robert flinched visibly. "I deserve that suspicion. But no. I'm managing on my own now. The job interview went well. I start next week. It's a modest salary, but it's enough. I'm learning to live differently." Lena leaned forward, her expression serious. "Here's what I find difficult to understand. You're here apologizing for abandoning me financially. But that was just a symptom of the real problem. You abandoned me emotionally long before that. From the moment you remarried, I became an afterthought. My achievements were footnotes compared to Braden's hockey games or Mackenzie's dance recitals. You didn't show interest in my life unless it served your narrative of the successful blended family." "That's not true," Robert protested weakly. "I was always proud of you." "Proud from a distance," Lena corrected. "Proud when it cost you nothing. But real support, showing up, paying attention, prioritizing my needs alongside your new family's wants, that was always too much to ask." To her surprise, tears welled in her father's eyes. "You're right. And I have no defense except that I didn't see it that way at the time. I thought providing a roof over your head during holidays and sending occasional checks was enough. I didn't understand that parenting isn't a part-time obligation. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. Your mother would be so disappointed in me. She made me promise to protect you, to make sure you had every opportunity. Instead, I protected my ego and my new marriage. Mom would have been disappointed, Lena agreed quietly. But she also would have wanted me to find peace. That's what I've been working on, not just building this company, but building a life that isn't defined by your absence. Robert nodded slowly. You've done that. More than that, you've created something extraordinary that's helping others avoid the struggles you faced. Lena stood up and walked to a frame on her wall. It contained the first dollar bill invested through the FinLift platform. Beside it was a small photo of her mother. FinLift exists because I had to find my own way, she said. But it also exists because Mom taught me about financial independence before she died. In her journal, she wrote about wanting me to understand money as a tool, not a goal. She wanted me to be financially literate regardless of whether I was wealthy or struggling. She turned back to face her father. I can't promise reconciliation. Too much has happened and trust takes time to rebuild. But I can offer honesty and cautious communication. That's the most I can give right now. Relief washed over Robert's face. That's more than I deserve and all I was hoping for. As they concluded their meeting, Lena walked him to the elevator. Before the doors closed, Robert said, "For what it's worth, Lena, I truly am proud of you. Not because of your success or this impressive company, but because you've become someone with integrity and purpose. That's all on you, none of it is my doing." After he left, Lena returned to her office and opened her desk drawer, pulling out her mother's journal. She flipped to the back pages where she had started making her own entries years ago. On a fresh page, she wrote, "Today I realized that forgiveness isn't about erasing the past, it's about refusing to let it control your future." Father's Day arrived on a sunny June morning, almost 3 months after Robert's visit to FinLift's offices. In the intervening time, they had established a cautious, arm's-length communication, occasional emails, brief updates about their lives. Nothing deep, nothing presumptuous on his part, nothing overly vulnerable on hers. Lena had learned that he had indeed started the accounting job, had moved into a modest one-bedroom apartment, and was attempting to rebuild relationships with Braden and Mackenzie with limited success. She, in turn, had shared news about FinLift's expansion to 5 more universities and her upcoming speaking engagement at a FinTech conference. Now, sitting in her apartment overlooking the Charles River, a significant upgrade from the cramped space she'd shared with roommates during college, Lena contemplated the pristine white card on her coffee table. She had purchased it weeks ago, a simple, elegant Father's Day card with minimal decoration. Inside it was completely blank. No message, no signature. Beside it lay the sealed envelope, already addressed to Robert's new apartment and stamped, ready to be mailed. Lena picked up the card again, turning it over in her hands as conflicting emotions washed through her. The idea had come to her during a therapy session, a symbolic gesture that acknowledged their connection without pretending all was forgiven and forgotten. Her therapist had asked a powerful question: what would it mean to send an empty card? Lena had given it considerable thought. It wasn't meant as a passive-aggressive jab, nor was it an olive branch. It was something more nuanced, an acknowledgement that while their relationship existed, there were still empty spaces, still words unsaid, still wounds in the process of healing. "It means I'm not pretending," she had finally answered. "It means I acknowledge him as my father without fabricating sentiments I don't fully feel yet. It means I'm leaving space for what might develop without promising what isn't there." Now, as she sealed the envelope definitively, she felt a strange sense of peace. This empty card said more than any generic Father's Day message could convey. It was honest in its blankness, authentic in its restraint. As she walked to the mailbox downstairs, Lena's phone chimed with a notification. FinLift had just surpassed its 50,000th user, a college student in Ohio who had set up automatic micro-investments from her part-time job at a grocery store. The accompanying message from the user read, "My parents can't help with college, but thanks to FinLift, I'm not just surviving school, I'm building for my future." Lena smiled as she dropped the empty card into the mailbox. The universe had a poetic sense of timing. Back in her apartment, she opened her laptop to find an email from Victor Chin with the subject line, "Acquisition offer, confidential." A major financial services company was interested in acquiring FinLift for $23 million. 23. The symbolism wasn't lost on her. She was 23 years old and now potentially worth $1 million for each year of her life. From working 2 jobs to afford classes to becoming a millionaire, all because she had refused to give up when her father had given up on her. She closed the email without responding. That decision would require careful consideration, discussions with her board, with her team. FinLift's mission was more important than money. She had built it to help students like herself, not to cash out at the first lucrative offer. Her phone rang. It was her father. "Lena," he said when she answered, his voice strained. "I got your card." She was surprised. "Already? I just mailed it an hour ago." "Not the physical card," he clarified. "The electronic notification from my mail service. They scan the exterior of incoming mail so I know what to expect." "Oh," she said simply, unsure how to respond. There was a long pause before he spoke again. "I want you to know that I understand. Whatever the inside of that card contains or doesn't contain, I understand." Lena felt a tightness in her chest. "It's empty," she admitted. "The card is completely blank inside." Another pause. "That's fair," he finally said, his voice thick with emotion. "More than fair, actually." "It's not meant to be cruel," Lena explained. "It's just honest," he finished for her. "It's honest. And after years of pretense and denial, honesty is what we need, even when it's difficult. Even when it's just empty space where warm words should be." Lena found herself unexpectedly moved by his understanding. "Yes. I want you to know something," Robert continued. "This morning, before I knew about your card, I made a donation to FinLift's scholarship program, the one that provides emergency grants to working students. It's not a large amount, just what I could afford from my first few paychecks. But I set it up as a monthly recurring donation." Now it was Lena's turn to be silent, processing this information. "I'm not telling you this to earn points or gratitude," he added quickly. "I did it anonymously. I'm telling you because I want you to know that I finally understand what you've built and why it matters. Not because it made you successful or because it validates my parenting in some way, but because it's helping people who are struggling the way you struggled, largely because of me." Lena felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. This, more than any apology, demonstrated that perhaps he really had changed, or at least was genuinely trying to. "Thank you," she said simply. "That means more than a Father's Day message would have." "I don't expect to ever fully make up for the past," Robert said. "Some debts can't be repaid. But I want you to know that I'm trying to be someone different than the man who failed you. Someone your mother wouldn't be ashamed of." After they ended the call, Lena walked to her balcony and looked out over Boston, the city where she had struggled, persevered, and ultimately thrived. The sun was setting, painting the skyline in shades of gold and pink. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, the long shifts at the coffee shop and restaurant, the nights studying while her peers socialized, the painful awareness of her father's new family enjoying luxuries she couldn't afford. She thought about Victor's mentorship, about the first users who had trusted FinLift with their hard-earned money, about the team that had believed in her vision. Most of all, she thought about her mother, whose wisdom had guided her even in absence, who had taught her that true wealth wasn't measured in vacations or houses or designer clothes, but in resilience, purpose, and the ability to help others. Lena opened her mother's journal to the final page, where she now wrote her own thoughts. She picked up her pen and wrote, "Today I sent an empty Father's Day card, not as punishment but as truth. The emptiness isn't permanent. It's a space waiting to be filled, slowly, honestly, over time. Meanwhile, I've built something that matters, something that helps others avoid the struggles I faced. That's a legacy Mom would be proud of." And perhaps in his own way, Dad is beginning to understand that too. "I no longer need to make my first million to prove my worth to him or to myself. The true measure of success isn't in bank accounts or valuations, but in creating something that outlasts the pain that inspired it." FinLift was born from abandonment, but its purpose is connection. There's a certain poetry in that full circle. Dad and I may never have the relationship we should have had. The empty card acknowledges that reality. But maybe we can build something new in that empty space, something honest, something real. Not father and dependent daughter, but two adults finding a way forward from the wreckage of the past. And in the meantime, I'll keep building, keep growing, keep helping others find their financial independence, just as I found mine. She closed the journal and looked out at the city lights beginning to twinkle in the twilight. The empty card was in the mail, making its way to her father. The acquisition offer waited in her inbox. Tomorrow would bring decisions about FinLift's future, about what kind of relationship, if any, she wanted with her father going forward. But tonight, in this moment, Lena Morgan stood alone on her balcony, financially independent, emotionally healing, professionally successful, not despite her father's abandonment, but because she had refused to let it define her. The empty Father's Day card wasn't the end of her story. It was simply one honest page in a life that was still being written on her own terms.